Well, he's the greatest college football coach of all time, and I've said this before, that the one thing Nick Saban's done that is really remarkable, and you just don't see this, when he took over Alabama, that first 4 or 5 years, I thought of it as a running backs, linebackers, and cornerbacks. They won with defense. And yet, somehow, as the world changed, and football's changed, I look at him now as a left tackle, wide receiver, and quarterback program. And if I was a young receiver 10 years ago, maybe not top my list. Now, that's where you go. And it's very rare. Even the great coaches struggle to pivot when the culture and sports change. We've seen this in the NBA with analytics. The Warriors jumped on it early. A lot of teams didn't, and they've paid a price. And so I think that separates Nick from any coach in my lifetime. And now I've sucked up to him. Nick Saban joining us live, the Alabama football coach. By the way, and I want to ask you this, Nick, because I do monitor sports for a living. I want to start with this question. What was the epiphany, the car ride, the meeting with a coach that you really decided, because it's pretty darn impressive, you know what, guys? We gotta pivot here. The world's changing. You did. Do you remember the moment of the off season, Nick, that you did?
Well, I don't know exactly the moment, but I remember that, Ole Miss, when Hugh Freeze was the coach there, were using the RPOs, fastball, fast, high-tempo play that was causing tremendous problems, for defenses in college football. This is probably 2013, 2014, 6-7 years ago. And I'm looking at it from a defensive perspective, and I'm saying, wow, we're not really taking advantage of the rules here. They got illegal guys downfield, and they're throwing passes, and RPOs create tremendous run-pass conflicts on defense, and you can throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage and block downfield. So we need to implement this pace of play as well as to utilize, how we need to change our offense so that we can take advantage of these things. So when I hired Wayne, whatever year that was, he and I had a meeting about this, and he had never done this stuff either, nor had we, but we decided that this is something that we need to do if we're going to be able to adapt and have a chance to score points in big games against really good teams. So he sort of started it, and then it's kind of growing through the years with, Mike Loxley, Sark, and a lot of the other good offensive coaches that we've had here.
Defensive coaches sometimes don't connect with quarterbacks. You do. And you can not only sell them your program, which had kind of a defensive brand when you first got there. Now it's kind of a progressive, fast, over the top. Reminds me of the Raiders in the 70s. We can beat you up front, or we can just go over the top of you. And you've changed that brand. You connect with quarterbacks. And Nick and I say this, not everybody does. I've seen, a lot of these defensive coaches, it's a different world. There is something about your personality, like the Aflac thing. You're a funny guy. You're a gent. You have a sense of humor. You have a person. You are. I've met you before. You're a funny guy. But sometimes, Nick, dealing with quarterbacks, Nick, they're sensitive. They don't have to share a position like a running back or a wide receiver or a linebacker. There's one on a team, and he gets to play. Take me to that relationship, because you've done a really good job in that space.
Well, I think it might have been helpful that I played quarterback in high school. And back in the day, I played when I was a freshman in college, but freshmen weren't eligible, so I never really played. They moved me to defense in spring practice, and I've been there ever since. But I think having played the position, you have a little better understanding of some of the things that are important to players who play that position. And I've always been able to relate to the quarterbacks, talk to them about things, to tell them the importance of leadership, accuracy, making good choices and decisions, because you're all about the guy that distributes the ball.
Right.
So we got to do that correctly. And it's probably football's a great team game except for that guy. And he makes a tremendous impact on your team, especially when you play a certain style of offense, which is what we play now. So I've always had lots of meetings and close relationships with the quarterbacks, and I can view the whole thing from 1,000 feet. So I think that's, sort of helpful in terms of how important it is for them to help the other players on their team play best, because quarterback is also the most difficult position in football to play when the people around you don't play well. So all these things are sort of paramount, I think, in my ability to understand what happens with players that play the quarterback position.
You know, I read a quote the other day. It's I was talking to one of my kids about this. Better to be a diamond with a flaw than a pebble without one. And I love college football. It drives me nuts sometimes. The transfer portal is just, I mean, give me a break. You can transfer at week 4 of the season. I mean, get your arms around this. Here, if I could change one thing in college football that really bothers me is the 2 signing periods. Essentially, coaches have no life. It's hard enough to coach, and now you got them. It literally, you're selling all the time. I've talked to coaches. I'm like, if you want the good coaches to stay in college, you got to give them a little bit of a 6-week break here. If you could change one thing in your sport, which you love, what would be the one thing you'd change today?
Well, I think that when we had the early signing date, a lot of people said, including myself, that this is going to become the signing date.
Uh-huh.
So when that started to occur, everybody wanted to move the recruiting calendar up so guys could visit in the summertime and make earlier decisions, and you had to make earlier decisions and evaluation. So I think because football is a developmental game, and especially when you're looking at young people, especially young, bigger guys, they develop a little later. And I think sometimes when you have to make early decisions on guys now, because we moved the recruiting calendar up, it makes it much more difficult. And people's expectation is you're going to offer them when they're a sophomore. And now we're offering guys when they're freshmen. And I think the nature of football being a developmental game, that lends itself to maybe not giving opportunities to guys who develop later. So if there was one thing I could change, it probably would be move the recruiting calendar back to what it used to be.
Yeah.
And have the signing date be in February, because I just think, we just accelerated the whole process to the point where people are making decisions earlier, we're making decisions earlier, and I'm not sure that's always the best thing for everyone.
You have, I never knew you were an actor, and they said you got to get to this Aflac thing, which is there's a new campaign this year, but you're funny on it. And, not a lot of coaches, I think, have acting chops. When you did this, talk a little bit about the new campaign. When they first gave you the script of this, did you think, hey, time out. I'm a West Virginia kid. I'm not from Hollywood. I don't know if I'm comfortable. Or did you just dive in and say, you know what? I recruit young kids. It's funny. I'm going to go with it.
Well, I've been doing this for 4 years, I think.
Yeah.
I really trust these people. I mean, they've done a really good job in the professionalism that they have in sort of creating these ideas. And, this whole idea of the duck and now the gap goat, it's, we're always trying to solve problems as coaches, Dion and myself both. And they're trying to solve problems for people who have a gap in their insurance coverage. So Sure. It's kind of a neat concept. It's fun. I really love doing this with Dion because he's got a great personality and he makes a lot of fun for both of us. So it's been a really good thing.
So you guys play Texas this year, and I love that. And I've said this before, is I wish September we had more big games. And I also I like USC going to the Big Ten. I like change. I didn't grow up a traditionalist, but it is interesting. Everybody loves Texas, Oklahoma, I hear, going to the SEC. But let me be Nick Saban for a second. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, now Arkansas's got their act together. Texas A&M, LSU, Georgia, Ole Miss, Auburn. And now I got to face Texas, Oklahoma. The hell if I'm going to go in the off. I'm not going out of conference. I'm not. Doesn't it disincentivize you? I mean, if I was Ohio State and I got to play USC and Michigan and Penn State, I look at it and I think if I was a coach, I wouldn't step up to the plate in September. I got to play Oklahoma on top of my schedule. Is there part of you thinking to yourself, be careful celebrating this. It may disincentivize some teams to play another big out-of-conference game.
Well, I've always been an advocate of Power 5 schools playing Power 5 schools. And I know there's some people, especially in Division II and 1AA, that disagree with that because we do a lot to help fund, their opportunities that they give to their players on their team. So I get that part of it. But I also think that we need to be really concerned about fan interest, and the more good games that we play, the more fan interest there is. So I've always been an advocate of playing more SEC games and of always trying to play somebody out of conference that's going to create some fan interest. So if one of the best seasons we ever had was the COVID year when we played 10 SEC games. That's all the games that we played. And I enjoyed that. The competition was great. It was difficult. We had a good team and we had success, but there was a lot of interest. We didn't play any games that season where people weren't interested. Even though we couldn't have fans, there was still a lot of interest because of that. So, and I think as soon as in any sport, people quit coming to the games, that's the first bad thing that we all should be concerned about, because eventually that will have a huge impact on the sport.
A couple years ago, Bryce Young was out here. He was a California player. And there was another really good player. I don't need to mention his name. But I remember telling people, I'm not some recruiting expert, but I saw Bryce and I was like, all right, that dude is different. That release is crazy. I think he's your most talented quarterback you've ever had. Take me to the moment. I mean, you look at 30 quarterbacks in high school. Take me to the moment you saw Bryce Young. Did you feel like, boy, that's different? That's not typical.
Well, I think the thing that made me feel that this is different and that's not typical is this guy plays the position a little bit like a point guard in basketball. His decision making, his judgment, his ability to create plays, whether he extends the play, whether he makes a quick decision. It's almost like he can see everyone on the field and he knows exactly what to do, when to do it, and makes really, really fast decisions. And making quick decisions to distribute the ball and be accurate with the ball is really important. But then this ability to extend plays and dish the ball off like a point guard in basketball. And he's so accurate and has such great hands. I think that when I saw him do some of those things in high school, I said, this guy is different.
Yeah. You still love recruiting. I know that because I follow it, and you're still on a flight to San Francisco in the middle of the night. And I always say, your college coach is done when he won't make those flights. When it's the check and it's the Saturdays, you are still a relentless recruiter. And that's really interesting. That some of that's probably your West Virginia background. You still seem like you like it. And I don't think a lot of older coaches, I think I've talked to them. They're like, I am done. You like it. Why?
Well, I think the biggest reason why is maybe it's because of my West Virginia background that you talked about. Is I learned a long time ago I couldn't coach bad players to play good. And when I found that out, I said, well, if you're going to play in this game, you better get some good players. So,
well,
that's
Nick,
about it.
Well, you look great. Great to see you. Hope you had a good summer. We got you in the national championship between your rush end and your quarterback and some new backs I haven't seen. You got to reload at receiver, but I was looking at this. There's 8 wide receivers drafted in the first round under Saban in Alabama. You've really become a wide receiver program. I mean, that is unbelievable. When I go 10 years ago, you had good receivers, but the depth and the quality is remarkable. Congrats on your success. You're a really busy guy. You didn't have to do this, and I really appreciate it, Nick.
Well, we appreciate it, and thank you so much. And, I know that Aflac is sort of the sponsor of all this, but I just want to say again how much I enjoy working with Dion. And it's been nice to work with you today and do this. This is one of the firsts for me, but I really enjoyed it, so thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.